Hey guys, what's going on? I'm here in Columbus, Ohio at the world famous Mecca of strength training, the Westside Barbell, with the man, the myth, the legend, Louie Simmons. Louie, thank you very much for having us.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Now, Westside Barbell, I'm excited to be here. I've been fortunate enough to be at gyms, strength training gyms, bodybuilding gyms, CrossFit boxes, a lot of different fitness facilities, and this is one of a kind. What you've built here. Tell us a little bit about Westside Barbell for people that don't know. If there are you still out there, tell us Westside Barbell.
Well, Westside Barbell is the strongest gym in the world. We broke close to 140 all-time world records, and we have the strongest male powerlifter pound for pound ever lived. Dave Hoff is also the greatest squat of all time. Dave totaled 3,005 at 271, and he squatted 1210 at 271. It's the greatest squat of all time. Erasing Chuck Vogelpohl, his teammates, 1180 at 264. All right, and I have a person down there right now, I believe, while squatting both pound for pound. You watch him. Wesley was training down there. Wesley McCormick, I believe he'll squat 955 at 165.
Wow.
And women-wise, we've dominated the women's scene. So it's a strength gym, and I've trained a few other people. I trained Kevin Randleman for strength when he was UFC heavyweight champion. Trained two Olympic gold medal sprinters, Butch Reynolds and Mo Robinson. Mo's female.
Yeah.
And you saw this morning, I got D1 sprinters in there right now getting ready to go to turn pro. And one was sixth in the Olympic trials. And I had another girl not in there, a hurler. She was in the semifinals in the 100 hurdles.
Yeah.
So I like track, and I like weightlifting, and we do a lot of conditioning for fighters and wrestlers.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's I guess a bit of a stereotype when somebody looks at a power lifter or looks at a strongman or comes into a strength-based gym that, if you're in that gym, if you're in that environment, it's only really applicable to if you compete in powerlifting type competitions. Would you agree with that, or do you think that strength-based training has overlap into, well, obviously you mentioned performance sports, but then also bodybuilding, CrossFit, other applications rather than just powerlifting?
What the Chinese say, without strength you have nothing. And there's two ways to train, the right way and the wrong way.
Yep.
My way is the scientific way, max effort. The dynamic, where you lift as much weight as possible for one single rep.
Yep.
And it's that day's a very low volume on the barbell. Then we have the dynamic day, which you saw today. And it's very high reps, and dynamic, it's you try to develop force equals mass times acceleration. Sub-maximum weights and maximum acceleration. You saw they did 25 squats and had to do 20 deadlifts. But it only constitutes 20% of our training today. The 80% will be on the small exercises you saw, the reverse hypers, inverse curl, belt squat, so forth. And as training works for all. You guys are from Australia, the Melbourne Storm, the whole our stuff. The only team to go 26-0 in the Premier League, all Westside Barbell. There's 2 books over about it right there. If you don't believe me, just pick them up. Phil Richardson was the coach, won 6 titles. So it's all for all sports. St. Louis Cardinals do this stuff. Many NFL teams, many colleges as well. So it's there's a scientific way to train, and that's how you have to train. You have to control volume so no one overtrains.
Yeah.
And in the correct intensity zones. That's where a lot of people don't understand.
Okay. So we have a lot of people that kind of follow us and are involved with our business, with MassiveJoes, who we have people that train for performance reasons, strength reasons, but we also have a lot of people that train for vain reasons, train to look a particular way, for aesthetic reasons. Where do you kind of see the crossover between strength training and training for aesthetics?
Well, if you talk about aesthetics, then I would talk about general fitness, but undirected fitness, much like CrossFit is. CrossFit is very, very fit, but it's undirected towards any sport.
Yeah.
And I think it's great because I read a statistic in America that 40% of the women are obese. And I believe the men's right there with them. So this is crazy. It wasn't that way even 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And actually, Columbus, Ohio is the strongest city in the gym, but it's also one of the fattest in America, which is amazing to me. And, it's also the fast food capital of the world here.
Yeah.
McDonald's and all these fast food chains were started here. Wendy's. I'm sure you've heard of all these.
Yeah, of course.
So they all started here, and I think because there's a lot of many mixtures of people, Hispanics and all type of people here.
Yeah.
So I think that's why.
Okay. The one thing that I noticed,
I think I missed your question
Yeah.
about aesthetics. That's like how we would train our fighters. We had two just come in as you were leaving.
Yep.
And once had 4 people fall out of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, they kept finding by to fight him.
Yeah.
And his name's Cody Stevens, the Wolverine.
Yeah.
And it's just tremendous. And also, Stipe Milenovich fights this weekend, all Westside. His coach trained with me for years, Mark Marinelli.
Yep.
He's Westside true and true. He went up there around 25 years ago or so, and he's always been for MMA.
Mm-hmm.
He's never got off course. I lived the life of a samurai. I never stray from the way.
Mm-hmm.
I've only done one thing in my entire life,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be 69 in a month.
wow.
Every day is the same thing: read, write, and train. Read, write, and train.
Yeah.
In direct training.
The one thing that really surprised me as we were walking through Westside Barbell, the gym, was I've been to strength and powerlifting based gyms before where they'll have a lot of, lifting platforms, a lot of monoliths, a lot of benches and deadlift platforms, but not a lot of accessory type movements.
Mm-hmm.
And the one unique thing that I noticed as soon as I walked into Westside Barbell was the belt squats, the reverse hyperextensions, the dumbbells, the different pressing machines. A lot of accessory type machines that I guess a lot of powerlifters probably turn their nose up at.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys obviously incorporate a lot of accessory type training.
We live on single joint training.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at textbooks in college, everybody does a thesis, and it's always managed to do. I think I was talking to you about single joint activity.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of a bench press, it's tricep extension. Instead of a squat, but I got to think about what we do. We train single joint.
Mm-hmm.
If I take this gentleman right here, he may have his upper back might be able to deadlift 740 pounds, but his lower back's only capable of 700.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a 700 deadlift.
Yeah.
So we work in areas. You notice my inverse curl. I said we'll make you saw the track girl doing it.
Yes.
We'll end up doing a Russian leg curl on it.
Yeah.
And just, you could go from never doing a Russian leg curl ever to doing Russian leg curls on that machine.
Uh-huh.
And so we work on, that's all hamstring. The reason the belt squat and reverse hypers work so well, and we do an enormous amount of work on those, is because it's a traction device at the same time.
Yeah.
So we're building restoration at the same time. Many people scorn what we do, but I don't see them at meets. They don't even go to the same meets we do.
Incredible. The Westside Conjugate method. Tell us a little bit about that training method.
All right. Well, the Westside Conjugate system, actually, the Conjugate system was named at the Dynamo Club in the Soviet Union in 1972.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Medvedev had a lot to do with it, and Dr. Verkhoshansky. Medvedev's primarily weightlifting, Verkhoshansky track. And also A.S. Perlipin.
Mm-hmm.
Perlipin's chart, if I've ever heard it, it's changed my life in 1981. And they did experiments there, but also, see, the Dynamo Club has 46 sports. People think it's just weightlifting. And but so I all my methodologies come from Olympic weightlifting and track and field, but I applied it to powerlifting. So it's easy to go back to track and field or actually weightlifting. I just wrote a weightlifting book, and we're selling just tons of these weightlifting books. It's a strength manual for weightlifters in America. Yeah, that's what they need. They need to be stronger. Their technique is just fine, but their strength level is very low.
So as technology kind of increases and we have these different ways of measuring performance and different ways of training, do you think that the kind of foundational principles that you apply at Westside Barbell will need to kind of adapt and
We're the leading edge. They're 30 years behind us.
Yeah.
And let's get back to the conjugate system.
Sure.
Everyone's idea about the conjugate system is switching exercises. That's what you hear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're constantly rotating large and small exercises in and out.
Yeah.
But also it's the volume. The volume and the intensities have to change. Like I mentioned on today, on Friday, it's very high volume and moderate intensity. That intensity actually is 75 to 85% in a 3-week wave. All those weights will make you acceleration. It's intermediate velocity. On Monday, and then all the accessory work. But on Monday, they'll work up to a 1 rep max. So the volume is very low, getting there, you make big jumps. And then the accessory work. So see, the conjugate, you have to go from high volume to low volume, moderate intensity to high intensity. And all of our training is you only want to lift the heaviest weight possible, and it's going to move slow so it develops massive force.
Yeah.
Objects, that's how you develop massive force. The other day is for acceleration. And so that's all we do. We concentrate on these 2 weights. And if you've got race cars or any kind of car, if you watch the tachometer, it always goes up. Race cars shift at 85. Your everyday car shifts at 25. It always shifts at 25 and a race car at 85, right? Why? Optimal horsepower. Our training on speed day, 75 to 85%, is optimal acceleration weights, and that's why we don't use any other weights. We don't use intermediate weights.
Yeah.
People over here, I use a 3-week pendulum wave. It was used in sports over in the Soviet Union and some from weightlifting. And the old progressive graduate, where they start with 10s, 8s, 6s, those are all wasted weights. You start out hypertrophy, then you move into power, then you move into strength. Well, as the weights come down, you lose your base training, and it's hit and miss to squat a big weight in the meet to when you want to do it. So that's why I got away from it in 1982, and I started doing the 3-week pendulum wave.
Yeah.
And the weights of 75 to 85%. That's 50% of the training of 780 high-skilled weightlifters from the Soviet Union in a test. So it's good enough for them. It's good enough for me.
Another thing that I noticed was today in particular that there were a lot of athletes training with bands.
Yes, you have to use band.
Why?
Because it's accommodating resistance. You have peak contraction, muscle contraction throughout the full range of motion. You know, if you look at a pec deck, it just works backwards. It's peak. You know, you start out the hardest thing you do, but where you're real strong, it's easiest. So it works backwards. And like you, it has to be a perfect weight. So, like, say you're sitting down like this, you can stand up, we'll say, for 300 pounds from this position.
Yep.
But if I put you at the 3/4 squat, you can stand up at 450 pounds. Well, by using bounds, I can go 3 to 450 on every rep.
Okay.
And if you don't use, and if you do accelerating, it's called CAT, compensatory acceleration.
Yep.
Fred Hatfield brought it up in the late 70s. You know, I mean, he brought it to America's attention, where you accelerate with light weights. Problem is, you have bar deceleration. All right, but you don't have bar deceleration with bands because you're adding, like you saw today, the guys is 250 at the top.
Yeah.
It's about 100 at the bottom and 250 at the top in the band they use, a blue band.
Yeah.
So that's how we eliminate bar deceleration, and it's accommodating resistance. You have peak, you know, we use 700 pounds of bands plus weight.
Yeah.
All right, sometimes.
There you go.
Yeah.
You as a person are quite phenomenal because you were an exceptional athlete in your chosen sport, in the powerlifting sport, but then you also have been an exceptional coach, and we don't tend to see that. Usually somebody is one or the other. They're either a great athlete or not, or a great coach, but very rarely those together. You've obviously been able to accomplish both. What are you more proud of?
Well, I was top 10 in the world for 34 years.
Yeah.
And I was pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
But, you know, actually my coaching, I have 13 patents, some, you know, United States and foreign. And it's all in spatial means. They're all devices to make you either fit stronger or more healthy. So it's hard to tell. But accomplishments, the training, I like to feel. I mean, I'm just as proud when one of my guys break a world record as I am, or as they are. I truly am, because that's why they come here. It's Wes McCormick moved here in 1 year. He had an 800 squat in 1880. It's top total in squat there is in the country and in the world, I guess, at that time. In 1 year, he did 890 world record. I promised him that, and he told 2080. We will break Kuchar's record, which is 2165. We will break that record. It's set on a course for 1 year, 1 more year.
Okay.
And you follow a system. Without a plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah.
Or without a plan or periodization, you have what's left, chaos.
Absolutely.
So you have to have a plan. People don't have plans.
Yeah.
And we stick to it.
Yeah. Now you've seen, obviously multiple athletes come through Westside Barbell, and you have an exceptional track record with the strongest people in the world. Do you think that strength is something that can be taught, or do you think you need to have a genetic predisposition to being strong?
Well, you have to have that. Like if you're an endurance athlete, 70% of your muscle fiber be slow twitch. If you're going to be extremely strong, it could be sometimes as much as 70% a fast twitch.
Yeah.
A lot of bodybuilders is a pretty good mixture because you have to have a lot of endurance and be fairly strong to do the massive amount of workloads that they do to get big. And so it's predetermined. You have to have that. Then you have to have the mental. You can have $1 million body and a 10-cent brain.
Yeah.
And I've seen it.
And do you think that's something that can be trained, or do you think that's
brain?
You're either born with it or you're not born with it?
There's two kind of people in this world, prey or predator. You need to find out which one you are. It'll show up real quick, and at the top you'll show up.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of my guys, they couldn't make it. They got to the top and they quit. One broke 3 all-time world records and is going straight up, and he just quit. They just seem to mentally can't cope with doing it. I think it's like race car drivers, if you went through a corner and almost got killed, then the next day you realize that you may never go around a corner fast again. So I don't know. It's never happened to me. I've had a lot of injuries, but I've only had one desire all my life, and I'm all beat up, and And so my job is to get these guys to break the records.
Absolutely. So even, I mean, with that in mind, so you've got such a concentration of the top strength athletes that come out of Westside Barbell. Is there something in the water here in Columbus, or?
It's the methods, it's me, and it's iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
If you run with a limb, you develop a limp.
Yeah.
So anyone that's not very good, I mean, the weakest person you saw in that gym, males, squats at least 800. You have to have an 800 squat to be a true member of Westside.
Yeah.
A 600 bench, and then the deadlift is crazy, 800 or a 2,000 total.
Yeah.
This is with gear, and so you have to have those numbers. You're not even an actual member of the club.
Yeah. And I noticed that as I walked in, there was a notice on the sign that said something along the lines of, you have to be invited to become a member. You have to be unanimously voted in as a member by the other members.
Right.
Is that the iron sharpen iron mentality?
If you brought a guy who can squat 500, what am I going to do with him when these guys are squatting 8, 9, and 1,000? You can't.
Sure.
They'd have to train by themselves, and you can't have that.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of visitors. You probably didn't know. So we had a guy in this morning. He actually squatted with the girls.
Yes.
He's from England. Yep. He's staying here a month. We constantly have visitors like this all over the world. So they come in and we work with them. We had a guy come in, Army vet, and he was here 2 weeks. Had a 515 bench. In 2 weeks he benched 615 in a shirt. Just showing him how raise his real strength up and learn how to use equipment.
In your opinion, what are the most common weaknesses that you see with lifters?
Weak lower back, hips, hamstrings, triceps, upper back.
And then following on from that, if you had to pick the top accessory movements that combat those weaknesses, what would they be?
Well, inverse curl, reverse hypers, belt squatting. We do lots and lots of good mornings.
Yeah.
All right. And then upper body, lots of tricep extensions. You have to do extensions. A lot of people do board press and they think it helps, but if you start with the wrong muscle group, it will not build your arms. He's going to start with your pecs and shoulders. That's what it builds. So you have to do again isolated exercises. I don't call it bodybuilding. I call it I call it strength hypertrophy work. We build muscles where it counts, and it only does good to be strong in the right exercises. It's just wasting your time to be good at something that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So we're careful. Our guys will have no egos. We got a new guy and he has no glutes. And last meet squat 905 and missed 950, which you should be able to do by what he trained here for that meet, but now he moved here. And I can see right away in a meet he has no glutes. He can't bring his hips forward at the top. And in the deadlift, he just missed a 705 deadlift at the very top, can't fire his glutes to come in. So he had the earrings, and you saw him, he's in the belly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Working on his weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I've had first-hand experience with. One of my training partners, Neve, was a powerlifter and never really had an interest in bodybuilding or hypertrophy style training, and all he used to do was bench, squat, deadlift, bench, squat, deadlift, and then maybe a few accessory movements, and could never reach strength plateaus and could never break through them. And then we started training together, and I trained for bodybuilding, so he started training like I was training for bodybuilding, and didn't touch a bench, a squat, or a deadlift for probably a good 6 months. And then when he went back to it, he destroyed all of his previous totals. So
he was the victim of the law of accommodation.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing over and over, you get diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Exactly. We don't do a regular deadlift off the floor. It's either on mats, we're standing on a mat, we got bands, or in a rack or something. We have our top 10 deadlift average is 866. Our top 5 is 890. And we don't do a regular deadlift. Our 198 record is 755, or 220 is 860. And so it's the very same thing. A lot of people think you have to do the exercises. You do not. Now, I've always asked a guy, say, how do you get away with that? And I'll ask you, how much did you deadlift the first time you ever deadlifted?
Probably 225.
Okay, but how could you even possibly do that if you'd never done a deadlift?
Yeah.
Some people will do it in the 4s and a 500.
Yeah.
They never done a deadlift in their life, never trained it, through manual labor. And that's a perfect analogy of why the conjugate system works.
So Louie, we noticed as we were walking through Westside Barbell and watching the athletes train, they were training squats this morning, but nobody was doing full depth squats. Everything was off a box. They were all box squatting.
Full depth on the box.
Well, full depth to the box.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's the reasoning behind that? Why were they box squatting?
Box squats are far superior to any other squat. One, you can squat wider and lower by sitting on a box. Two, you break up the eccentric concentric chain.
Okay.
A lot of people think pause squats the same thing as box squats. Nothing like that. Because you sit on the box, some of them, as you sit there and relax, some of the muscles are being stretched while others are then being contracted. All right. So it's just when you do regular squats, bodybuilders do regular squats. What do you build? Your quadriceps. Well, your quadriceps don't do the squat. The hamstrings and the hips do. So box squats build primarily the hamstrings and hips. If you watch it, to initiate yourself off the box, you see flexion in the hips. They have to drive it to the bar first, and then they drive their feet apart, so it's all flexion of the hips. I mean, I train my track people the very same way. And so that's why we box squat. And all the squats are, we squat on extremely low boxes. I mean, 10-inch box, 8-inch box, and especially for the deadlift, you sit on 8-inch box, you sit down, completely relaxed, then drive straight up out of there. It builds a tremendous deadlift power.
And it's something that you don't see a lot of athletes do.
No, and you guys are in a lot of gyms. As the weights get higher, the squats get higher.
Yeah, of course.
But if we do 1,000 squats at parallel, we do 1,000 squats at parallel, not 3 inches above and 4 and 5 inches.
Yeah.
It's always the same. It's the same depth. So every time we're training, biomechanics properly in that manner. But we're creating the correct muscle firing.
Yeah.
That's why we do it.
Absolutely. So when do you think, well, do you see any of your athletes that have an issue going from having the box there and always training on the box to when they compete and they can't use the box, they have to go full depth?
We have had 6 people to hold all-time squat records. So I would say no.
I would say no.
I don't think one single gym in the world could say they've had 6 all-time bench record holders too.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely not. I never did a regular squat, and I was top 10 squatter in 5 weight classes.
Yeah.
I was first top 10 was 1972. I was top 10, but 1971 I was national record holder in the squat. Before they started tabulating them, it's called Powerlifting News. In 2000, I squatted 920. When I was 50 years old, it was the second best squat in the world. And then when I was 63, I did 730. My neck, I got a screwed up neck, and I squatted 730 when I was 63 and pulled 675 at 217. Wow. All box squats build pulls. Because you get down to you get down, you drop down, you release your hips, and then fire up out of there. That's what a box squat does.
Yeah.
So they immediately help pulling power as well.
Okay. So I guess we've spoken about box squatting, we've spoken about hamstring and glute strength. So we're pretty much talking about squats and deadlifts.
Yes.
We haven't spoken a lot about bench press. What would you say, are the best kind of movements to improve your bench?
Well, there's a lot of things we do. We're famous for doing 9 sets of triples in the bench for speed bench. We also do another program for hypertrophy. You guys are probably like it. You look like you like to bodybuild. It took Wesley down there from a 320 floor press in a year to 370 floor press. He do 6 sets of 6. You let's say you do 180. Let's say you do 200 for 6 sets of 6.
Yeah.
It's 36 reps. Next week 25. Next week 210. 215. Then it gets really hard. So you drop back to 8s and you start back with 8s. And you go up for 8s. Now you're doing 64 reps. So you go 8s, for 3 or 4 weeks. Then you start to stall. You go to 10s. So you're doing 100 total reps. And we normally do them very, very wide, and then do an enormous amount of extensions with this program right here.
Okay.
And then when you burn out with the 10s, you go back to the 6s. It took my raw bench in the 181s from a touch and go from 340 to 450. All right, and I touch and go to a strict touch and go 500 197.
Wow.
So it's it's very effective. Another very effective way, because nowadays as benchers, these guys aren't nearly as strong as they was.
Yeah.
Now I have a couple guys who get raw bench over 600 in my gym now. I used to have six at a time.
Wow.
And they and so it's a big difference,
Yeah. So I guess if what you're saying is squatting is kind of misunderstood as being more of a quad type exercise, when a lot of the strength comes from the glutes and hamstrings.
That's right.
Same with deadlifts. Where do you think a lot of the strength comes from bench press? Because a lot of people assume that it's a chest exercise, right?
Yeah, they assume that, but they're incorrect.
Yeah.
Because it's upper back and triceps.
Wow.
show me how you do a. If people think pecs, you need pecs for stability, and but you also need a strong back.
Yeah.
But do a pec fly for me.
A pec fly right here.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. But you never extend your arms out like this in a pec fly. You have to do your arms have to do extensions. So you have to live on extensions. So a lot of heavy, and I mean we do heavy, 125-pound dumbbell rollbacks is nothing for a lot of my people. So we do a lot of extensions. You need pecs, but you need an enormous upper back, because that's the base of the bench. Lats control the bar, and then the triceps is going to lock it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching an interview that you did, and you said, how do you know how high a pyramid is? And they couldn't answer the question, and I thought it was
how high is a pyramid?
How high is a pyramid? And your answer was, well, it depends how wide the base is, how big the foundation is. So I guess that's kind of the principle that you use for, how much can you bench, squat, and deadlift? Well, it depends how good your base is.
You need a huge base.
Is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a great way of putting it. It's a great analogy. I really like that one.
Yeah, but it's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Like Ohio State football. They've got so many players, they can run them in and out, in and out. They're going to wear a lot of teams down because they got so many good football players. Same thing.
There you go.
Got a big base. Their base is, top players is one after another. Just keep coming in and taking the number one guy spot.
Yeah.
Why wrestle? Been putting back in.
Yeah.
So big base. You had to have a. So that's what I said. The average training for like a 198 down there in the squat is 150,000 pounds. 60,000 pounds of reverse hypers. So it's high volume. See, a lot of people don't understand my program, and then a lot of people don't like it because it's a lot of work.
It's work.
But if you want to be good, you got to do a lot of work.
Of course.
Never take a knife to a gunfight.
In the past, Louie, you've written that in the US there's a big kind of strength focus for performance sports. In Australia, it's completely different. It's much more of a skills-based focus, and then kind of strength and conditioning is kind of thrown in as an afterthought rather than the primary purpose for a particular sport. How do you think that we would go about changing that in Australia, changing that foundation?
I think you should call Danny D. Pasquale.
Yeah?
Yeah. And have him talk to you, and because he's totally changed his training since he came to the same thing with Mac Richards. And totally changed his training. We told him during the off season he needed to bring a wrestler in to wrestle with his rugby team. He said he picked up a couple injuries during the off season, but to eliminate an enormous amount during the season where it counts.
Yeah.
In American football, they run way too much.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they run gassers, they run stadiums, but in a football game, you have 4 plays to make 10 yards. All right, in American football. But yet they run miles. And eventually, if you do too much aerobic work, you'll destroy anaerobic capacities.
Yeah.
So they really slow down.
Yeah.
They sent me a chart about a year ago on 207 high school combine players, very good going into top schools, that went into the NFL. They compared them.
Yeah.
And 157 ran no faster or slowed down. So what does that tell you? They run too, and they said why? Well, why? Because they do too much aerobic work, and they destroy their quick. They turn them into endurance runners instead of sprinters.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Instead of performance.
And
athletes.
there's a tremendous amount of athletes in the country. The pool is just retarded.
Yeah.
NFL football, I think it's less than 0.1% to make pro football.
There you go. Now, the new line of supplements coming out of Westside Barbell. So venturing into supplements. Obviously, you're very famous for your training methods and a number of books that you've written. Now going into supplements. So I know that the first releases of supplements is a pre-workout performance-based supplement. Then you've got a branched chain amino acid recovery type supplement, and then a protein powder as well. What's the mindset behind going into supplementation?
Well, you can't neglect anything in training. Everything has to be good. You need good nutrition, good supplement nutrition, good training, good restoration methods. So you have to have it all. And if you lack one thing, you'll fail. It's just breaking the link of that chain, and you're going to fail. Too many people are too fat. Too many people are in the wrong weight class. So they could be adjusted by using supplements.
Yeah. Everything's connected.
That's right, and good protein for recovery and energy.
Yeah,
it's 2 things you have to have.
Yeah, Absolutely. It's kind of like the extension of the Westside Conjugate method, right?
You saw my two track girls in there. The one had a headband on. She's
Yeah.
a Jamaican girl,
Yeah.
originally.
Yeah.
And the other coach gives her to me. And she has to gain 8 pounds. So we've already put 6 pounds on her. And using these supplements actually.
Yeah.
So it just shows you that it works. The correct training, the correct nutrition, and it's all turning in. And our goal is to get these girls pro.
Yeah.
So they can make a living, good living,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got some exciting news as well. The Westside line of supplements is coming to Australia and New Zealand through MassiveJoes.com. And Louie, we appreciate that opportunity, and we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Same here.
Thanks for inviting us.
And good luck with everything.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. As always, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay up to date with all the latest videos. If you're watching this on your mobile, turn the post notifications on so you don't miss a beat when it comes to the MassiveJoes YouTube channel. As always, Louie, thank you for having us.
Thanks again.
We're coming to you from MassiveJoes.com. Stay massive.